Thanks for joining us. This is Omni View, episode 86. It's June 19th, 2026, and as always, we're covering what happened from every angle. Here's the news, the perspectives, and the questions worth asking. U.S. tariff probe into Germany's drug pricing signals rising trade friction that could raise medicine costs for patients on both sides of the Atlantic. The U.S. Trade Representative opened a probe into Germany's proposed changes to drug reimbursement rules. Officials described the rules as potential barriers to American pharmaceutical exports, and the inquiry could lead to tariffs or other trade measures if violations are found. U.S. trade officials argue that foreign price controls unfairly limit market access for innovative medicines developed in America. German health authorities counter that their system protects patients from high costs while maintaining supply. Industry groups on both sides are watching whether the case sets a precedent for future disputes over pharmaceutical pricing. What evidence would determine whether the German rules constitute an unfair trade practice? Shifting now to developments in Britain, John Edwards, head of the UK's data and AI regulator since 2022, resigned after acknowledging he made inappropriate attempts at humour in the workplace. The Information Commissioner's Office confirmed the departure without detailing further disciplinary steps. Government officials have framed the exit as a routine leadership transition that allows fresh oversight of rapidly evolving AI rules. Privacy advocates see the resignation as evidence that even senior regulators must model the standards they enforce on tech firms. Civil service norms in Britain treat workplace conduct complaints as matters requiring swift accountability, regardless of an individual's policy achievements. How do internal conduct standards at regulators influence public trust in their decisions? Meanwhile, a new study examines how people interact with AI tools. MIT researchers found that people who rely on AI chatbots for information show reduced ability to evaluate claims independently and greater difficulty spotting misinformation. The study tracked participants over multiple tasks involving real-world news and data. Technology researchers argue the findings highlight a trade-off between convenience and cognitive skill development as AI tools become default information sources. Educators worry that widespread adoption in schools could compound existing challenges in teaching media literacy. Technology companies maintain that well-designed AI can also flag misleading content when users choose verification features. How might schools adapt assessment methods if chatbot use becomes common? Next, we turn to energy infrastructure. Surging electricity demand from data centers has prompted major technology firms to sign new wind and solar contracts, boosting clean energy project pipelines that had slowed. At the same time, the facilities continue to draw large amounts of power, often from fossil sources during peak periods. Energy analysts note that corporate procurement is now the main driver of new renewable capacity in several states. Environmental groups point out that overall grid emissions may still rise if gas plants fill gaps left by delayed transmission lines. Utility regulators are examining whether faster grid connections can be paired with stricter efficiency requirements for large users. What role do corporate power purchase agreements play in actual grid decarbonization? In marine science, researchers are examining coral resilience. Researchers are identifying coral populations that survive higher temperatures in the hope these stronghold reefs can supply larvae to restore damaged areas. The work focuses on regions where natural conditions already select for thermal resilience. Marine biologists emphasize that protecting these sites offers a practical supplement to emission reduction efforts. Conservation organizations stress that local threats such as pollution and overfishing must still be addressed for any restoration to succeed. Climate scientists note that even resilient corals face limits if ocean temperatures continue rising at current rates. How do local protection measures interact with global temperature trends? Turning to international security, President Trump told South Korea's leader that the time had come to address North Korea's nuclear program, according to remarks after the G7 summit. No specific new measures were announced. South Korean officials welcomed the renewed attention as a chance to coordinate pressure and diplomacy. North Korea watchers caution that previous engagement attempts produced limited verifiable limits on the program. Regional security analysts note that any new approach will depend on whether China and Russia align with or resist additional sanctions. What combination of incentives and penalties has historically altered North Korea's nuclear timeline? Additional reports from the World Cup highlight tensions inside the Portugal squad. Claims that teammates deliberately limited passes to Cristiano Ronaldo during a World Cup draw have sparked public accusations within the Portugal camp. The player's sister issued comments on the reported on-field dispute. Football commentators describe the episode as typical of high-stakes tournament pressure on veteran stars. Supporters of Ronaldo argue that experienced players deserve the ball in decisive moments. Team officials have urged focus on upcoming matches rather than internal disputes. How do team dynamics change when a national side relies heavily on one player? In business news, a new report examines the costs of private jet ownership. The report outlines annual expenses for private aircraft, including multi-million-pound maintenance. Hangar fees and crew salaries form part of the recurring outlays. De-icing charges can reach 5 figures per event. Aviation consultants note that fixed costs remain high even when aircraft sit idle for long periods. Wealth managers highlight that fractional ownership or charter arrangements can reduce some of these burdens for occasional users. Regulators track how rising demand affects airport capacity and emissions accounting. How do ownership costs compare with commercial first-class travel for frequent flyers? Turning to technology developments, a video from China shows a humanoid robot on a street in Sichuan province. The robot displayed a sign requesting funds for recharging. Local reports did not confirm who controlled the device or its purpose. Robotics researchers view the incident as an early example of public interaction with mobile humanoid platforms. Technology ethicists raise questions about consent and transparency when machines solicit resources from passers-by. Local authorities have not yet issued guidance on such demonstrations. What safety and identification standards should apply to autonomous robots in public spaces? In popular media, young adults are adopting the term solomaxing to describe prioritizing personal development and autonomy over romantic partnerships. The approach presents singledom as an intentional lifestyle rather than a temporary state. Cultural observers note the trend reflects longer periods of education and career focus among Gen Z. Relationship counselors caution that deliberate isolation can still carry mental health trade-offs. Media coverage has amplified both celebratory and skeptical reactions on social platforms. How do economic conditions influence attitudes toward long-term relationships? In entertainment news, former EastEnders actress Daniela Westbrook posted images revealing scars from recent facial procedures. The images were shared while she visited a hair salon. Westbrook stated she had undergone 6 operations. Entertainment media have documented Westbrook's long-running health challenges and multiple surgeries. Fans have expressed support for her openness about recovery. Medical commentators note that extensive facial reconstruction often involves staged procedures over months or years. How does public discussion of cosmetic and reconstructive surgery affect patient expectations? Now, to really understand the tariff story, most coverage treats tariff investigations as simple retaliation, yet the mechanism usually begins with a formal complaint process that allows the investigating country to gather evidence of alleged unfair practices before any duties are applied. The U.S. Trade Representative, for example, must publish a timeline, accept public comments, and often negotiate with the foreign government during the probe. This structure gives both sides time to adjust policies or offer concessions, as seen in past cases involving aircraft subsidies and digital taxes. Knowing the procedural steps helps readers assess whether an announcement signals imminent tariffs or the start of bargaining. Next time you see a headline about a new tariff probe, ask what specific rule is alleged to have been broken, what remedy is requested, and which domestic industries stand to gain or lose from prolonged negotiations. Tomorrow, watch for further updates on coordination between South Korea and the United States regarding North Korea's nuclear program. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective. If this show helps you do that, share it with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow, and before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts covering tech, science, markets, and more. If you enjoyed today's episode, give Models and Agents for Beginners a listen. Artificial intelligence explained simply for beginners and curious teens. You can explore the whole lineup at neuranetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice, editorial selection, and analysis are my own.